Are you thinking of moving to the Phoenix area from Chicago and wondering what are the things to know before coming to move here? Well, stay tuned to find out all the things that you should know and some of the differences between here and Chicago.
You know, we get so many calls from people that are looking to move to the Phoenix area, and honestly, we just love it. We love sharing information about the area with you. We've both lived here for an awful long time, and we know a lot about the area, and we'd love to share that with you again. So what you need to do, though, is you need to give us a call. Send us a text, an email, however you want to reach out to us, please do, and we're more than happy to share everything we know about living, working, breathing, everything about Phoenix.
Chicago is one of the top locations supplying new residents to the Phoenix area. And many are wondering, what are the differences between Chicago and Phoenix, in terms of cost of living, scenery, as well as just the top things that you should know before making the move down here. Well, let's go dive right in. And first things first, let's talk about the cost of living. Now, Chicago is another major city, although if you are making $100,000 in Chicago, you'd only need to make $81,500 here in Phoenix.
Quite a difference.
In order to have the same standard of living. Now, speaking of that, one of the main differences for the cost of living is the housing prices. Now, over here in Phoenix, our housing prices, the median prices, are about 31% lower than they are in Chicago. Our median price here in Phoenix is around about $346,000 compared to about $513,000 up in Chicago. Now, there are other areas where we're a bit cheaper. Actually, across the board, we're actually a bit less expensive than Chicago. Speaking of which...
Well, you know what? Let's go back to the cost of housing in Chicago. I know a huge difference is the property taxes. I have two brothers that actually live in the northern Chicago suburbs, and I know their property taxes are outrageous. I mean, I think their home is about half the size of mine, and yet their property taxes, I want to say, are at least 3 times what I pay for my property taxes here in the Phoenix area. So that's a huge cost when it comes to housing.
Yep, and then moving on into transportation costs, Phoenix is right about 20% lower. Food costs are relatively the same, but we are right about 4% lower than up in Chicago, so save a little bit there. Entertainment costs is another big one. We're actually 17% lower for entertainment costs down here in the valley than up in Chicago. So you get a bit more for your money, can enjoy some more fun things out on the weekends and in your free time.
Some more evenings out for dinner.
Exactly. Healthcare is also a bit more affordable here. We're 11% lower down in the Phoenix area than Chicago is. And then our school rankings, according to gradeschools.com, Chicago ranks 3 out of 10 for the schools versus Phoenix is 5 out of 10. So overall, the schools, according to them, are a bit better over here in Phoenix.
I think that's overall rating, though, right?
Overall rating.
I mean, I'm sure there's some excellent schools in Chicago. There are a lot of 10 schools that are ranked a 10 here in the Phoenix area as well.
It all depends exactly where you are. You can always find those great schools, which again, if you are looking for one of those great schools here in the Phoenix area, make sure to reach out to us. We can definitely help you find those and give you some resources. That way you can, find which ones work best for you.
Now, when it comes to weather, there's a huge difference between Chicago and Phoenix area, especially in the winter time. Like I said, family members that live up there, and I know how cold it can get. And then plus with the wind coming off of the lake up there, it gets even colder, and it's kind of like a little humid, so it kind of gets into your bones. Now, Phoenix, on the other hand, in the winter time, is one of the best places in the country to live because we have such tepid weather here. We can have days in January where it's in the 70s, maybe even in the 80s, and it very rarely drops below 40. Once in a great while, we might drop into the 30s. So really, Phoenix is a 365 outdoor activity kind of community. Yes, it gets a little hot here in the summertime. Actually, it gets very hot here in the summertime. But we don't have nearly the humidity that the Chicago summers do. So when it's 80 degrees and 90% humidity in Chicago, it actually feels a lot more comfortable when it's 100 degrees with 5% humidity here in Phoenix.
Now, let's move on to population of the two cities.
Okay.
Now, both are very large cities. Chicago and city proper is actually the third largest city in the U.S. with a population of about 2.7 million.
Okay.
And Phoenix is the fifth largest, so only 2 rings ahead. But our population of the city proper is only about 1.7 million, so about 1 million less than Chicago. Then moving to the metro population, Chicago is almost twice as large as the Phoenix area, with Chicago having in their metro about 9.5 million versus right about 5 million here in the Phoenix metro. So what does that mean? It means that here in Phoenix, we are going to have quite a bit less traffic, easier to get to different places around, especially the downtown areas. Our downtown here in Phoenix is quite a bit smaller than the downtown proper, or the Loop area up in Chicago. It means getting around much easier. And then also with that, Phoenix is physically a much larger city than Chicago is. In terms of area, Phoenix is right about 519 square miles versus Chicago is 234 square miles. So as you can see, with Chicago's population being roughly about twice or a little under twice the size, and also physically the area being half the size, leads to a lot more traffic and some inundations trying to get around Chicago versus here in the Phoenix area.
Yeah, I remember the last time we were up in the Chicago area for a wedding, we made the mistake of heading back out of the city right at rush hour. And oh boy, that was tough. I mean, yeah, we have rush hour traffic here, but nothing like you guys have in Chicago. So if you're looking for a little less traffic, this might be a great spot for you.
Yep, especially I know myself, I don't like traveling 2 miles every 45 minutes up in Chicago, so that could be a great change for you.
Well, when it comes to activities, honestly, for boating, you guys got it. With Lake Michigan there, you have tons of boating activities available. We do have some small lakes, but there's nothing that compares to Lake Michigan. So for boating, you guys win.
And your beaches up there with Lake Michigan. Again, you guys have the victory up there. Although we do still have the lakes and some beaches around here, just nothing as prominent as you guys up there. Also, Arizona, we really specialize in outdoor activities. Versus in Chicago, you guys have tons of parks. You're actually ranked in the top 10 in the country for the amount of parks that you have. We're lacking a little bit here in terms of how many parks that we have, but it's our outdoors that really shine.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Phoenix has over Chicago is the mountain preserves and how we have all these mountain areas where you can go hiking within the city limits. A lot of, like Phoenix and Scottsdale, they've all spent a ton of money preserving the mountains so that we have lots of natural outdoor space to be able to recreate. So you can go hiking, you can go mountain biking, horseback riding. We have all those things really, right in the city or very, very close to the city.
Yep, and that's, again, you hit it right on the head there. While you guys up in Chicago do have the lake, we have mountains here. Mm-hmm. Not very flat, and we also have ski hills right close. You can go up to Flagstaff, just about 2 hours away, get up to a peak of over 12,000 feet, enjoy some skiing there. And then hit up Sedona, the Payson area, and just more variety of scenery over here in the Phoenix area than up in Chicago. We both have sports teams. You guys up in Chicago, you take your sports teams very seriously. You guys have, your football, baseball, hockey, kind of everything up there. Here in Phoenix, we also have all the sports teams. And luckily, we don't have to fight with each other about who likes the White Sox or who likes the Cubs. We only have the D-backs here. But we still have the Cardinals for our football. We have the Suns for basketball, and then we have the Coyotes for hockey.
And the Diamondbacks for baseball.
Yep, so we do have all the major sports teams here as well.
And you know what? Your sports teams, your baseball teams actually come down here to Arizona for spring training. So if you are a diehard Cubs fan, you will be able to watch them play during spring training.
Yep, which is really nice. All the new spring training facilities right here in Scottsdale are fantastic, and they're really building a lot onto them too to make them just a whole destination in themselves. Yeah. Now I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into the housing differences. We talked about it a little bit earlier in terms of the overall cost of the median pricing, but some differences for buying a house here in Phoenix versus up in Chicago is we don't need lawyers when you buy a house here. You can just go through real estate
We're
agents.
called a title state, so we have escrow companies that do our settlement for us, so you don't need to hire an additional attorney to review your purchase contracts.
Yep, but other than that, the buying process is pretty similar between the two. Although here we don't have as big of an urban center as you guys up in Chicago do, especially right around the loop. We do have urban centers in downtown Phoenix, and then most of the suburbs and cities around also have small urban areas and urban centers around. But if you're a big fan of that big city life and you like those skyscrapers and high rises,
Yeah.
we don't have too much that can compete with that here, but we do have a lot more spread out area. So if you like a little bit more land and a little bit more breathing space, definitely a good mix and a good change if you come down here.
You know, and I think Phoenix is a newer community than Chicago is. So Chicago, you're going to have a lot of older homes, whereas I would say most of the Phoenix metro area, the homes, you know, have been built since the 70s, 80s. I would say that actually the majority of them since the 90s. So in that aspect, the homes in the Phoenix area are going to be a lot newer than you're going to find unless you get way out into the suburbs of Chicago. Like Josh said, we don't have really, we have a little bit of urban life, but if the urban lifestyle is what you're looking for and that's what you're used to in Chicago, we got a little bit of it here, so we can help you with that, especially like we said, if you're looking to get nicer weather, especially in the winter.
And moving on here to the job market and job
Yeah,
opportunities.
that's important.
So both Phoenix and Chicago have very good job opportunities and job prospects. Although Phoenix here, we do have a lower unemployment than Chicago. And in terms of future job growth, we're about double the growth that is projected of Chicago. We're listed right about 48.2% future job growth versus Chicago is about 25.7%. So still good job growth up in Chicago, but down here in the valley, we are one of the highest and fastest growing job markets around.
You know, I've been here since 1990 and it was growing fast then, and it has continued to be one of the fastest growing areas in the country.
Yep, especially if you're in that tech industry. We have so many new tech firms coming in over here. We are now, part of the city is called the Silicon Desert.
Yep.
We have that big new TSMC plant and tons of new job opportunities here as well. So if you're worried about that job growth coming down here, don't worry about it at all. Plenty of jobs to go around. So that about covers the differences and the things that we think you need to know if you're moving here to the Phoenix area from Chicago. Although if we didn't cover everything, you have
I'm
other
sure
questions?
you have other questions, and you know what? That's what we're here for. We're here to answer all your questions.
So just, again, reach out to us, call, text, however you want to get a hold of us. We're here to help and just want to help you find your ideal spot in the Phoenix metro area. But if you like that video, make sure you hit that like button.
Yep.
Get that bell on so you get notified of all our future content. And if you haven't already, subscribe. It's free. And plus it helps us out a great deal and we appreciate it. But thanks again for coming. We'll see ya.